Welcome back to another lesson. Today we'll be talking about the mixer brush tool. Okay, so the mixer brush tool can be found right here under brush. Okay, so just open your brush tool button and then you'll see pencil, color replacement tool, and then mixer brush tool. Okay, so select mixer brush tool and then select a color. Let's just do red for now. Choose a simple color. Okay, and then for the toolbar for the mixer brush tool, you can see the following. Okay, so you can choose how much paint you have loaded in your brush. Okay, so you can do custom to like customize your own, and then the presets are dry. Okay, so dry, light load, heavy load, and then moist, and then wet, and then very wet. Okay, so if you choose dry, let's choose so I'm gonna choose a brush. Maybe I'll do a let's see. Maybe I'll do a Sargent big canvas to simulate I guess the grain of the canvas, the texture of the canvas. Okay, so I'll get a fairly big brush out, okay? Okay, and just start painting. Okay, you can see that the brush is also simulating the texture of the canvas. So if you zoom in, you can actually see the texture of the canvas, right? So that's dependent on the brush itself. Okay, so okay, it works just like a paintbrush. Okay, it's very cool. All right, and then I'm gonna choose maybe okay, so here's the dry load. Okay, what dry load does is the paintbrush is dry. It's not wet, meaning well, it's gonna be very saturated with paint. And also, you can choose the load on it. So if I do light load and paint versus like a heavy load. So I'll choose I'll use a smaller brush and show you what I mean. Okay, so light load. Okay, so if I do a light load, the paint, that's how much you're gonna get. Okay, so I'm gonna load. Okay, so I'm gonna click on this button, which is basically load the brush after each stroke. This one is clean the brush after each stroke. So if you do load the brush after each stroke, you don't have to manually load the paintbrush with paint every time you make a stroke. So I'm gonna turn this on. Okay, and I'm gonna show you how short the strokes get. Okay, that's because the brush isn't very saturated with paint, right? Okay. By the way, I'm using my pen tablet here, so that's why you're not gonna see the red circle whenever I make a mark. Okay. If you have a pen tablet, it just makes painting a lot easier. Okay, so if I choose heavy load, you're gonna notice that your paintbrush is loaded with more paint, so you're gonna, like before it runs out, you can get a whole lot. Okay, it takes a while for it to run out, but you get the gist. So if you just do regular dry, I'm gonna go back and erase some marks. A regular dry mark is longer, okay, and then a light load is going to be shorter, okay, and the same principle is applied to all the saturation of the paint. Okay, so I'm going to choose moist. You're going to see that it's lighter, right? Okay, and then you eventually run out. Okay, wet light mix is going to be like this. Okay, and you'll be able to see it works just like a paintbrush. Like, you can actually get a whole lot of paint, and the brush marks, if it goes over existing marks, it'll grab that paint and smear it around. Okay, see what's happening? It's like smearing the previous marks, right? Okay, and then you have very wet as well. So experiment with these presets, and also you can make your own. You can choose the wetness and the like the load, and then the mix, flow, everything. Okay, let's choose a different color. Okay, blue. So for this one, okay, I'm gonna do like dry light. Oh, let's do a wet light mix. Okay, and then see how the paint mixes. Okay, see how it's interacting with the red. The blue isn't just going over it. The blue is actually interacting with the paint that's already there. It works just like real paint. Okay, I'm gonna choose a different brush. So when you paint, it's good to use many different brush presets so that you can get many different line qualities. Okay, and just play around with it a little. Like, see how it interacts. It's like, if you've painted before, you'll notice that it's actually very, very accurate. Okay, so it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Once you get used to painting in Photoshop, it kind of becomes difficult to paint in real life because it's just so convenient and so easy. It's also a really good way for you to get into actual painting, because you don't have to worry about oils or solvents or anything like that, and you just get straight to painting. And all you have to really worry about is the brush, the type of brush you use, and your color choices. So it's a really good way to get into real painting. All right, so play around with it. And what I'm going to show you next is related to the next exercise. Okay, so I think we covered everything here. Make sure you experiment with color mixing, because well, color mixing is obviously a very important part of painting, right? Oh, also, so this button right here, this is clean the brush after each stroke, right? This is the opposite of this one. This is load the brush after each stroke. So if you load the brush after each stroke, you're basically dipping your paintbrush into the paint on your palette. Okay, so that's why you're getting blue as you click. But if you turn this off, you're not dipping your paintbrush back into your paint, right? So once it runs out, you won't be laying down paint, which means you'll have to manually load the brush. Okay. So let's look at this one. Clean the brush. Okay, so if you clean the brush, obviously the brush is clean, so you're not gonna get any paint on your canvas, right? So once I do this, okay, if I do this, okay, I'm laying new paint on my canvas, and then I turn this off, and then I turn this one on, which is clean the brush, then I'm basically moving what's already on the canvas around, because this paint is still wet, right? We're working with oil paint, basically. This is wet paint, and with the paintbrush, you're moving this paint around. Okay, so at this point, I'm just smearing it, right? So this button, the clean brush after each stroke button, is actually very useful when you're trying to manipulate photographs, which I will show you next. Okay, so here is a photo of some flowers. And what we'll be doing here is we'll be adding brush strokes to our photo to make it look like an oil painting. Okay, so I'm gonna choose a paintbrush. Maybe I'll choose. I'm gonna try what is this, watercolor? Watercolor soft. Okay. I'll be using Sargent Fat 2017. Okay, and then I will okay, so you don't want to keep the brush size and the brush the same all the time. It's okay, like it's okay if you use the same brush for the whole thing, but that's not what most painters do. They'll move. You know how like Bob Ross has a lot of different brushes in his arsenal. So it's good to change your brush depending on what you're painting. So for example, like I'm using Sargent Fat 2017 for the flowers, and for maybe the background I'm gonna use like a flat bristle or something. Okay, so depending on what you're painting, choose the brush and choose it wisely. And then the more important thing is to vary the size of the brush. So if you're using a mouse to do this, then it's more difficult because you have to go in here and manually change the size, right? But I'm using a pen tablet, so if I press lightly, my marks are thinner and lighter, and if I press hard, it's darker and thicker, right? So if you have a pen tablet or just a tablet with pen support, then you can use your stylus to paint, and that makes your life a lot easier. But if you're doing this on a mouse or a touchpad, then you'll have to change the size manually, which you also can do by just right-clicking your canvas. If you just with the mixer brush tool selected, if you right-click, then you can easily change the brush and the size. Okay, so for this one, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna leave this on. Okay, I'm gonna leave clean the brush on, and I'm gonna turn off load the brush, because if I turn on load the brush, I'm only gonna put down blue, right? But that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to move the paint on this photograph around. Okay, so I'm gonna choose a smaller brush, and then I will start moving around the colors on my photo to emulate a painting. Okay, so at this point, I'm not laying down new color, I'm just moving around the existing colors on this photograph. Okay, like so. Okay, so I think I'm gonna crop right here. All right, so it looks like a painting, right? It has brush strokes. Okay, so let's do this. Yep, and then maybe I'll choose a different brush for the background. Maybe a flat alternative big canvas. So this is like, this brush is, oops, I'm gonna turn this on. Okay, this brush is it's wide and flat, right? So I can do this on the background and turn it into a painting. Oops. Okay. And if I do this, obviously it's gonna mess with the painting itself, right? so I'm just gonna do this. Okay, and here's our painting. Okay, so here's an example. I'm gonna do another example. I'm gonna go back. Okay, so I'm gonna zoom in to, let's do this area. Okay, so one thing you have to remember is to make a new layer. Okay, so make a new layer. Okay, so that whatever mark you make ends up on a different layer. Okay, so make a new layer, and then you have to turn on sample all layers. This is very important. Okay, so once you turn on sample all layers, even if this empty layer is selected, you'll be able to manipulate the layer underneath it. Okay, and whatever manipulations you make on this top layer, it'll land on the new layer and not stay on the background layer. Okay, so turn on sample all layers, and then let's try doing this one. Okay, so I'm gonna choose maybe I don't know, Bristly Bob. Let's try this one. Okay, and I'm gonna turn this off. Oops. Oh, okay. So let's see. Oh, I'm gonna turn on sample all layers. Okay, and then just paint over it. Okay, in this one you can really see the brush strokes. I'm keeping the brush strokes in one direction because that's the style I want to go after. Okay, I'm going to do this leaf back here. I'm going to do a little bit of this. Okay. All right. Let's zoom out, see how much we have. All right, so this is what it's going to look like. Okay, on the new layer, this is what it looks like. Okay, so once I do the same process for the entire photo, it's gonna look like an actual painting. You don't have to make the brush strokes very small. I can choose something like a 448 pixel brush. See what this does. Like, I'm gonna lose a lot of detail, but then also this is like the if you look at a lot of paintings, they actually lack a lot of detail. Even with a brush that's like this big, like, you're losing a lot of detail, but you can still tell that they're flowers. Okay, so even this, yeah, you can still tell they're flowers. So that's what I have on the top layer. Okay, so try this on your own and submit it. Okay, I'll see you next time.